Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom has a brand new release and it is absolutely adorable. Jaded Blossom never disappoints with their adorable releases, and I think this one will be very popular. Here's a look at all of the items included in the release. The first item is a stamp set called Gnome Crossing. This is currently not available for purchase. It's the freebie you'll receive if you purchase at least $50 worth of product, and one item must be from the new release. This is for a limited time and while supplies last. The next item is a stamp set called Donuts for Sale. Lots of really fun sentiments that work perfectly with the Build-A-Booth set. Of course, you can always use these without the booth. And I do want to mention, I completely forgot to record all the new products before using them. So my stamp sets are already used, and you'll also see the dies already snipped apart. When you receive the products from Jaded Blossom, they do come in a nice Ziploc bag. The next stamp set is called Loads of Love. Lots of really fun sentiments that work with one of the brand new die sets. And there are coordinating outline dies. I love having the outline dies to use with the sentiments. There's a fun variety of sentiments that you can use year-round. There are a couple that you could use for Valentine's as well. Will you be my Valentine? Then we have a birthday sentiment, racing by to wish you a happy birthday, and lots of other fun sentiments. Jaded Blossom always has great sentiment stamp sets. Now moving on to the die sets, we have a new Gnome add-on set called Breakfast. There's a fun donut balloon that has a bite out of it. There's also the large donut that the gnome can hold, a croissant, a muffin, and also a scone. And this is a great set to use year-round since it isn't seasonal or holiday themed. There's also a new add-on for the Build-A-Booth set. This one's also called Breakfast. There are 3 different buntings to decorate the booth: donuts, muffins, and croissants. And there's also the little display plate with a cover. I think this set would work perfect with the cocoa or coffee add-on sets. The next die set is an add-on for the Wheelbarrow dies. It's called Love Mail Add-ons. Now you will need the original Wheelbarrow die set. You can fill up your wheelbarrow with lots of hearts or Happy Mail. And there's also a small bunting with 3 little hearts. And I love the variety of different heart dies that are included on the set. The final die set, which I think is going to be the most popular, is called Car Dies Cruiser. We now have an adorable car for our gnomes to ride in. I absolutely love this car. You can fit 1 or 2 gnomes inside the car. Their little hats do stick out the top, but I think that makes it even cuter. If you are interested in any of the items from the new release, I do have links in the description box below. And as always, I do have a few cards to share with you using the new release. For card design number 1, I've already assembled one of the booths. I used pattern paper for the booth. It's from Lawn Fawn's Spiffier Speckles Petite Paper Pack Collection. It's this lovely green color and it has a gold foil splatter all over it. I put glue on the back and adhered it on some white shimmer cardstock. And I'll place an acrylic block on top for some added weight while the glue dries. I've already gone ahead and cut out all of the pieces to decorate my booth. I'm starting with the croissant bunting piece. I used some light tan cardstock for the 3 croissant pieces, and I'm adding a little extra ink to the edges using Catherine Pooler's gingerbread ink color. Using the same ink color, I'll also add a little bit of ink to the top of the muffin. For the bottom of the muffin, I'm using the icing on the cake ink color by Catherine Pooler. Now it's time to assemble the croissant. This is super easy. Just 3 pieces that layer all together. By adding the ink on the edge of the 3 croissant pieces, it gives the finished croissant that toasted look. For the background piece of the muffin, I did use some white cardstock, and I'll glue the two muffin pieces on top, and you won't be able to see that white cardstock. This will be a blueberry muffin. I cut out 3 small blueberries using a purplish blue cardstock color. I am using an embellishment wand to pick up those blueberries since they are super tiny. The booth will also feature a large blueberry muffin. I used the same cardstock and ink colors. I'll just glue down the 5 blueberries. Next, I'll assemble one of the donuts. This is a chocolate donut with pink icing. To display some of the pastries, I'll be adding 2 of the display case pieces, just the plate. I use white cardstock for the background piece and silver satin mirror cardstock for the plate and the stand. And just to save time on the video, I've already assembled and inked up the rest of the pieces for the booth. I have all of the die cut pieces organized in scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. I didn't want to lose any of those tiny pieces, especially those teeny tiny blueberries. I'll adhere all 5 of the croissants on the bunting piece. I use dark brown cardstock for that piece, so you'll just be able to see the string once I adhere all the croissants in place. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere it at the bottom of the booth. It's so fun decorating the booth. You can have a gnome standing in front, or you could have a gnome standing behind the booth. I decided for this card not to add any of the gnomes. For a sentiment, I've already stamped out fresh pastries, croissants, scones, and donuts. Although my booth doesn't actually feature any scones, instead it has donuts. I did pop up the sign with some thin foam dimension. I'll add the large blueberry muffin on the left side of the sign, and I'm also popping it up with some foam dimension. Next, I'll add the 2 display plates. I'll glue both of those down. I like that you can fit 2 of them on the countertop of the booth. Now it's time to add some of the pastries on the display plates. I'll put 2 blueberry muffins on the right plate and 3 donuts on the left plate. And I am adding small scrap pieces of cardstock or pieces of foam dimension behind the muffins and the donuts. After adding one of the pastries, I'll hold the next one up and determine how thick of the foam or cardstock pieces I need to add behind. Since the donuts and the muffins are overlapping each other, I'll need to add slightly thicker dimension behind the next donut or muffin. I only have the 2 muffins and the 3 donuts, so I am adding a few more layers behind the donuts. For the final donut, I did put some thicker foam dimension at the very top since all 3 of those donuts are stacked on top of each other. You end up with quite a few layers of cardstock. Most of the foam dimension I use for my cards is fairly thin, 1 millimeter thickness. The small round foam dimension I'm using behind the chocolate donut is 2 millimeter thickness, and it's from scrapbook.com. For a final finishing touch, I'm using a white gel pen and adding a few highlights on the croissants, the muffins, and the sign. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making 2 using this design. The cards are basically the same. The booth that I assembled, the boards at the bottom are vertical. For the second card, I added horizontal boards at the bottom of the booth. For card design number 2, I am using a card sketch for inspiration. This is from MFT. It's number 678. The pattern paper I'm using for the next 2 cards is from Newton's Nook Designs. It's their Love and Chocolate collection. Super cute paper. I selected 3 pattern papers. I have the cute donut paper for the background, tone-on-tone green stripe paper for that smaller rectangle piece. And for the small arch in the background, I'm using a tone-on-tone pink pattern design. For the arch piece, I use Jaded Blossom's rounded tag die set. So currently there is a hole at the top, but I will be covering that up. I layered the background and also the green stripe paper on some dark brown cardstock. After adhering the pink tag down, I'll add the green stripe piece at the very bottom. This card will be featuring a girl gnome. I don't always show the assembly of the gnomes in my video, so I thought I would this time. I like to use white cardstock for the background piece of the gnome. All of it will be covered up. For the girl gnomes, I always start with attaching the dress, then adding her face. Next, I'll add the hat. I use some embossed pink cardstock for her dress and green cardstock for the hat. This gnome will have wavy blonde hair. The main piece of the hair does get adhered behind the gnome. Then there are a couple of smaller hair pieces that you'll glue in front. Before attaching those two front pieces of her hair, I'll first adhere the nose, and I did put foam dimension behind the nose piece. Now I'll add the hair pieces on the right and left side of her face. Next, I'll add her feet, and I'm also popping them up with foam dimension. So there is the girl gnome almost assembled. She doesn't have her hands yet. She'll be holding a large donut. I use some brown cardstock for the main piece of the donut, bright pink cardstock for the icing, and now I'll glue on all of the sprinkles. I cut them out from brown, green, and white cardstock. I'm trying not to adhere the sprinkles in a specific pattern. I'm really trying to do them random. And technically, these would be really large sprinkles compared to the size of the donut. Other than the fact it's not a chocolate donut, this is what my daughter would choose. Always something with sprinkles and chocolate. I have just a few more sprinkles to adhere. It does help to use a pair of reverse tweezers to pick up some of these smaller pieces, and also embellishment wand for the teeny tiny pieces. Once I've added all of the sprinkles, I'll attach her hands, and I'm putting them more toward the bottom portion of the donut. Now I'll flip over the donut, put foam dimension on the back. I'm using thin foam dimension behind the donut and slightly thicker foam dimension behind her hands. That way it stays at the same level. I'll remove the release paper and add the donut in front of the gnome. She is super happy with that giant donut. Before adhering the gnome and the sentiment, I'll put a small banner in the upper left-hand corner. I cut it out from the same dark brown cardstock using Jaded Blossom's banner die set. I'll add some thin foam dimension on the back of the gnome. Before adhering her to the card, I'll first add the sentiment. I've already stamped out donuts for sale. I use brown ink on craft cardstock. I'll cut a fishtail on the right and left side. Then I'll add some thin foam dimension on the back side. I'm using scrapbook.com's 1mm foam roll. I'll remove the release paper and add the sentiment at the bottom of the green tone-on-tone striped panel. Now I'll add the gnome above the sentiment, and I'm trying to position her to cover up the hole at the top of that pink tag. Next, I'll use a white gel pen, add highlights on the gnome's hat, her nose, and feet. Then for a final finishing touch, I'm adding a couple of heart-shaped sprinkles from Doodlebug on the gnome's hat, a yellow and also a pink heart. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. I love the fun and bright colors. This paper collection works perfectly with Jaded Blossom's new release. Now moving on to card design number 3. The heart pattern paper is from the same Love and Chocolate collection by Newton's Nook Designs. The pattern paper piece is 5 1/4 of an inch by 4 inches. I layered it on some pink embossed cardstock that's A2 size. At the bottom of the card, I added a 1 1/4 inch strip of teal cardstock. For a little bit of separation and shine, I'm adding a Love from Lizzie peel off above the teal cardstock. This is the clear glitter iridescent with silver overlay color in the pinstripe style. I used the medium width. This card will be featuring the wheelbarrow filled with happy pink hearts. I'll start off by assembling the wheelbarrow. I used dark brown cardstock for the background piece. This will all be covered up, so you can use whatever scrap cardstock you have on hand. I used the same dark brown cardstock for the handle of the wheelbarrow, black cardstock for the wheel, and silver mirror cardstock for the center of the wheel. Now I've seen the wheelbarrow assembled two different ways. You could put that long handle piece in front of the wheel, or you could put the wheel in front. I've actually done it both ways. For this card, I decided to have the wheel in front. Before attaching the wheel, I did put scrap cardstock pieces behind it on that background area. I used a light gray cardstock for the stand of the wheelbarrow and craft cardstock for the main portion of the wheelbarrow. You can see on the background piece, it does have that little dirt area. You can trim that off, but I like to leave it on. That way there's an area to attach the heart portion inside the wheelbarrow. And you'll see that here in a moment. For the background piece of the hearts, you will see a little bit of it between many of those hearts. So I did use some pink cardstock, the same color I used for the background layer of the card. And for all of the hearts, I cut them out from some bright pink cardstock. If you want the hearts to look like they're overflowing out of the wheelbarrow, you could leave the very bottom of them attached. After adding the hearts at the very bottom row, I'm flipping over this main background piece and trimming off the bottom area of the hearts. That way it looks like they're all tucked inside the wheelbarrow. I have one final heart to adhere. I'll flip over this piece, trim off that little extra overhang. Then I'll put glue on the dirt area of the wheelbarrow and attach the pile of hearts. I'm also adding this small bunting with the three little hearts. I use white shimmer cardstock for the string piece and light pink cardstock for the three small hearts. This is the same pink cardstock I use for the background. I cut out three more hearts using the same bright pink cardstock, and I'll be adhering them in the lower left-hand corner. But first I'll attach the wheelbarrow bursting full of hearts. I'll flip it over, put foam dimension on the back using some thin foam dimension in black. I will need to cut some small pieces to put behind the stand and also the handle of the wheelbarrow. Now I'll remove the release paper and adhere it on the right side of the card. The wheelbarrow is fairly large, but it does fit on an A2 size card, and you could even add a gnome standing next to it. The gnome with the wheelbarrow wouldn't fit as well on a vertical card, but it does fit on a horizontal A2 size card. Now I'll add the three hearts in the lower right-hand corner, just gluing them all down. I'll add the tall heart down first, the larger heart on the right-hand side, and the smallest heart on the left-hand side. I've already stamped out the sentiment, loads of love. I cut it out using Jaded Blossoms label die set. Put foam dimension on the back, and I'll adhere the sentiment in the upper left-hand corner. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add highlights to all of the hearts and also the wheelbarrow. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. I think this card would be perfect as a Valentine's Day card or just to send to someone to tell them you love them. Using the new Wheelbarrow Love Mail add-on set, you can also fill up the wheelbarrow with lots of happy mail. Now moving on to card design number 4. I have a piece of white cardstock in my Waffle Flower mini stencil mat. I'm using Distress Oxide ink tumbled glass color, adding a lovely sky all over the background. The very bottom piece will be covered up with some pattern paper, so I wasn't worried about getting ink down there. I cut a narrow strip of pattern paper from Sunny Studios' Heroic Halftones paper collection. I thought it worked well to create a little road. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. I noticed a very small sliver of the white card base showing at the bottom of the card, so I did go and trim that off. This card will be featuring the brand new Card Dies Cruiser set. I've already gone ahead and cut out all of the pieces, and I'll start off by assembling the car. I'm using some fun pink polka dot pattern paper from Doodlebug Design for the car. And as much as I love the color pink, no, I do not have a pink car. I'm okay with that. I can just create a paper one instead. Now, I am not a car person, so forgive me, I do not know the names of all these pieces for the car. I just know it's super cute. There is an outline piece for that front portion that has the bumper. I use white cardstock since all of it will be covered up. For that very center piece, I use some silver mirror cardstock, and for the rest, I use 2 different shades of gray cardstock. For the background piece of the car and also that front piece of the car, I use the pink tone-on-tone polka dot pattern paper. After assembling the bumper piece, I'll adhere it to that front portion of the car. After attaching the bumper, I'll pull out the background piece and adhere the tires. I used a dark charcoal cardstock color for the tires, the steering wheel, and also the small little circles underneath the headlights. I like that Jaded Blossom included all the different pieces for assembling the car, and I love that all the die cut pieces have the faux stitch detail. Now I'll add the front portion of the car. For the side mirrors, I cut them out of silver mirror cardstock, and I know technically the mirror would be facing the other direction, but sometimes that piece is metal on the outside of the mirror as well. And that's the fun thing about paper crafting. There really isn't a right or wrong color or style to use. For the hood of the car, I use some solid pink cardstock, and for the headlights, I use some light yellow cardstock. And the final pieces to attach are the small black circles that go underneath the headlights. So there is the car all assembled. I love how this turned out. It's super cute. So now it's time to add the gnomes inside the car. I've already gone ahead and assembled most of the gnomes. The girl gnome that'll be driving, you won't see their feet, so I didn't add any shoes or feet. And I'm actually cutting off that little foot stub on the right side of the gnome. I guess technically it would be her left foot. I didn't want that area to be sticking out the side of the car. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side of the car, and I put a little bit of glue along the top area of the car where it'll be sitting on her hat. Then I'll add the little girl gnome. Now I'll glue both of her hands on the steering wheel. She'll be riding with a friend. Now for this gnome, I used the leg add-on set. The legs are designed so it looks like they're doing the splits, or you can snip them in half and have the gnome stand. And that's what I'll be doing for my girl. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back of her dress, and I'm lining up both of her legs on my craft mat so I get them nice and even, although most of them will be covered up. Now this gnome is very reckless. She is not sitting in her seat. She's not wearing her seatbelt. Instead, she's standing on her seat in the car. I wasn't sure if I wanted her leg sticking out the side of the car, so I was trying it a few different ways. I put some double-sided adhesive tape behind the car. When I was happy with the position of the reckless gnome, I adhered her down. And I'll put a little bit of glue behind that top portion of the car. She's being a little safe since she is going to hold on to that top area of the car. Put glue on the back of her hands and adhere them in place. Just to make sure all those die cut pieces stay attached, I'll add some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side, remove the release paper, and I will pop up the gnomes and the car using some foam dimension. I'm using thin black foam squares. I'll make sure to get good coverage so there isn't one area that sags. And I did cut a tiny piece of foam dimension to put behind the tip of the girl's hat. Now I'll remove the release paper and add the car with the gnomes on the front of my card. Now the card does fit horizontally on a card, But with the two gnomes, the tall hat, and the gnome standing up in the car, it wouldn't fit that way. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. Decided to add the sentiment beep beep. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. Using a white gel pen, I'll add highlights to both of the gnomes and also the pink car. I have two different sources of cardstock I use for the skin tone of the gnomes. One is by P13, and Jaded Blossom does carry it, although it has been out of stock for a while. The other is from Hero Arts. I will add links on my blog, but both of them have been out of stock for a while. Hopefully they'll get restocked soon. For a little extra detail, I'm adding some white flowers. The flowers are from the Gnome Garden add-on set. I'll add the largest flower in the center of the car, the medium flower on the girl's blue hat, and the smaller flower on the girl with the yellow hat. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding a few heart-shaped sprinkles from Doodlebug. So there is my finished card. I did make 4 cards using the new car, and all of the cards are different. I made a second card with the pink car. Features the same gnome girl, but she doesn't have her friend with her. And I added the sentiment, "I'll never tire of our friendship." Next I have a teal car with a boy gnome. He's racing off to a birthday party and took that corner just a little too fast, but he doesn't want to miss the celebration. The last card features the same teal car, boy gnome, and he has his car filled up with Valentines to bring to his loved one. I added the sentiment, "Will you be my Valentine?" and put a couple of clouds in the sky. I love the new car die cruiser set, and I know I'll get a lot of use out of it. The card I assembled with you with the pink car and the reckless girl gnome is my favorite. But do let me know which one is your favorite. Now here's another look at the 10 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new January 2024 release. This is such a fun release, so many amazing new stamp and die sets. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. And if you don't see an item listed in the description box, you can always head over to my coordinating blog post and I'll have it linked over there. I also share pictures of all of the cards and sketches used on my blog. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.